Anyway, without further ado, here's my daughter talking about smartwatches
Grandchildren.
for your grandchildren.
Hi, I'm here back this summer for the holidays, and my dad invited me onto the show, and I said, "What do you want me to talk about?" And it just so happens that my son's smartwatch needed a new battery, and I said, "How about I talk about smartwatches for kids in case anyone out there is thinking about getting a smartwatch for a Christmas present or a birthday present or pitching in." Um, I thought maybe I'd share some of my own personal thoughts on smartwatches for kids. So number one, as a teacher, the last two schools I've worked at, smartwatches have been completely banned from the schools. And I know here in British Columbia next year, the smartwatches they're moving towards a ban as well. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, generally, at least at international schools, kids rock up to schools with Apple Watches, which are really, really expensive. And so it doesn't make much sense for a 8-year-old to have such an expensive watch at school that can go missing so easily. But there are other couple of things that make having a smartwatch at school tricky. Things like once when I was working in Beijing, a grade 2 student ended up calling all of the Beijing's emergency response. I don't know if it was on purpose or accident, but they called them, and we had the Beijing fire department, police, and ambulance service all come to our school. And the principal actually went and got the child and marched the child out to the gate to see the parade of service cars that had arrived. I think it was an accident. And then after that, there was no more smartwatches. Smartwatches also have cameras on them. And in this day and age, with kids taking pictures and consent and whatnot, it's just a good idea that they're not at school. And they're also a big distraction, especially Apple Watches. They come with games on them. And so as far as the schools are concerned, there are a lot of schools around the world are moving to a complete ban on them. It's tricky for parents though, because I know that parents like to get in touch with their kids, being able to call them, send messages. If I can understand if children have any issues at the school and the parents want to make sure their kids are safe, then I can see like the attachment to, wanting to stay in touch with your child while you're at school. So I guess the first thing to think about if you're thinking about a gift for your grandchildren or whoever with child with a smartwatch is think about like where they're going to wear it, what time of day they're going to wear it. Can they wear it to school? Is it a weekend thing only? And so that would be a good place to start talking with whoever you're buying a smartwatch for. The next one was when we started to look for smartwatches for our son. We didn't really want him to have a smartwatch, but we bought it during the COVID pandemic when we were all doing online learning. And even at 3, our son had online meetings, and we needed structure to our day. So he was often with our nanny. So I needed to keep a schedule of where he needed to be, what he needed to do, because we were all working at home. But I didn't want a smartwatch with any games. That was my number one thing. I don't want any games on my smartwatch. And we didn't want a smartwatch that needed to be charged, because that was just an added level of complexity for us that we just didn't want. So after a lot of research, I found this little watch. It's made by Garmin. It looks more like a Fitbit, but it's a Garmin watch. I think it's called a Garmin Vivo. So this Bluetooths to my phone, or it can Bluetooth to any phone, I suppose. And then it comes with a app that you download. And then there's no charging. It just has one of those little circle batteries that you put into it. But it keeps check of his steps on the app. If he collects so many steps in a day, it unlocked a chapter of a story, which was kind of fun. So every day we would check his steps and check the app and see could, and it was a Star Wars watch. So it unlocked chapters it unlocked chapters in a Star Wars story. The other thing I liked about it was that I could program chores and alarms. So if I wanted him to do several chores, I'd make a checklist on the app on my phone. And if he did it, then I can click it off and then it gives points. And I could also set alarms, but that was pretty much it. He can't contact friends. There's no phoning. There's no GPS. There's nothing. But he has loved this little watch, especially when we travel. We all compare our steps. The data is sometimes really interesting. I can look at his long range data. Like we just moved schools. So the other day I was curious. I wonder if he gets the same step count at his new school as his last school. And I was able to look that information up. But this is like, I would say this is kind of halfway between a dumb watch and a smartwatch. But he loved it and he loved the unlocking the stories. There was incentive to it without without gamifying anything. And there's no games on it. And so it's not a distraction. There are brands of smartwatches out there that kind of fall, I would say, into a middle range smartwatch where it's not open, it's not an open service. So when you get your smartwatch, parents have full control over the contact list. So this is something else to think about, is who is accessing the smartwatch. So I know there's some phones out there that it's only the parent's phone number that can go onto the smartwatch. I've seen smartwatches out there that have degrees of like different levels of contacts that you can choose. Maybe you want 5 contacts. Maybe that includes your emergency list with grandparents in it. But children cannot add any contacts, so they can't add their friends. You can get smartwatches that have GPS on them. So if your family, or if you have family, that your child is walking home or beginning to take themselves to soccer classes, that might be option that is helpful. And then I know some smartwatches also, there's a monthly subscription fee so that, again, the data is not out in the world. You're paying a subscription fee for the information to stay private on that. It's a closed circuit. And then there's all the bells and whistles, games. I was just doing a little search last night on the watches, and there's some phones out there or watches that advertise so many games as like that's what parents want. And there's some watches that just say like a virtual pet. But even a virtual pet, I think there's problems with the distraction piece. And then you get to your Apple Watch, which has everything out on it. But then it's like cost, charging, games. And as far as I know, it's open for contact lists and people to contact you. I don't know what the parent controls are on Apple Watches, but these are all some of the things you'd want to think about before buying an Apple Watch for anyone. And then, of course, like you want children to also be able to read and just tell time on an analog clock. So I think what we might do at the moment is this watch is out of batteries. It lasted 2 years without battery change. We might go get him a little cheap watch with some hands to tide us over until Christmas, when we might do the next version up in this watch, which I'm sure our son will be not so thrilled with, but we do want him to be able to read a clock. But I do think smartwatches are really fun, and the step count piece has been something that's been enjoyable for us as a family. I have a Garmin, and so my son and I can even like put competitions with each other between our watches. So that's kind of fun. He says he has met other children at school with the same watch that he can set challenges. I don't know how he can do that, but there's no chatting feature. It's just connecting and competing with their footsteps. And that's it. So I hope if anyone out there is thinking about a smartwatch as a gift, maybe those are some things to think about before you go out and buy, because there are a lot of watches out there. But I didn't want to tell you all the brands because you can find those out yourself. But I think definitely the things to look at are cost, the ease of use, like in terms of charging. Does it have games? And then the degree of openness the child is on the digital platforms like GPS, social media, cameras, and do you want those things on your smartwatch? That's it.
Thanks, Jennifer. Can you just remind everyone what the name of that smartwatch is
So
again?
this one is a Garmin Vivo, I think, Garmin Vivo Junior, and they've just come out with a new one. Which is $99 on Amazon, which is a pretty, in terms of the smartwatch costs, I think it's a pretty good deal, especially considering like we've gone through 2 batteries and we've had this watch for 4 years. So it's lasted the test of time, and my son never takes it off. And just in the last 2 months, there's a little piece of strap that broke off. So he's worn this swimming, he's worn this traveling, he's worn this all over the world, and it hasn't broken down. There's little engraved Star Wars pictures on it that have rubbed off, but he's found it super comfortable. And so this was a really great find. So we'll probably just stick with this brand.
Okay. Thank you so much.
The Downloads folder, your hub across Linux, Android, and Mac OS. I'm Bill James, Tech for Seniors. Our presentation this morning is on the Downloads folder. It's a folder in modern computer operating systems as the default directory or folder designated for storing data from a download from the internet or other network sources. The Downloads folder is a standard feature across Linux, Android, and Mac OS systems, offering a consistent and convenient way to manage downloaded files across different platforms and serving a similar purpose across these platforms. The default location for downloads. When you download files from web browsers, email clients, or other software, they are typically saved to the Downloads folder by default. This centralizes all downloaded content, making it easy to find and manage. Ease of access. The Downloads folder is usually accessible directly from the file manager or desktop, often with a shortcut or quick access link. This convenience ensures that users can quickly locate their recent downloads without navigating through complex directory structures. Organization and management. Operating systems often provide tools and options to help organize the Downloads folder. Users can sort files by date, type, size, and name, and can create subfolders to categorize files manually. Security considerations. The Downloads folder is a common target for downloaded files, which can include potentially malicious content. Modern operating systems include security features like sandboxing, automatic scanning, and user permissions to mitigate risk associated with downloaded files. Customization options. Users can change the default download location if they prefer to store downloaded files in a different directory. This setting can be adjusted in web browsers, download managers, and other applications. Integration with applications. Many applications are designed to interact with the Downloads folder. For example, web browsers prompt users to open or save files directly from this folder, and email clients might save attachments here by default. Temporary storage. While the Downloads folder serves as a convenient holding area for new files, it is often used as temporary storage. Users are encouraged to move important files to more permanent locations, like Pacific project folders or cloud storage, to keep the Downloads folder uncluttered. Cross-platform consistency. The concept of a Downloads folder is consistent across major operating systems like Windows, Mac OS, and various Linux distributions. This consistency helps users who switch between different operating systems to maintain a familiar workflow. Linux, Android, and Mac OS systems. A Downloads folder is found in Linux, Android, and Mac OS systems, serving a similar purpose across these platforms. In Linux, location and access. In Linux, the Downloads folder is typically located in the user's home directory. It is accessible through the file manager of various desktop environments like GNOME, KDE, and others. The usage and customization. Applications like web browsers, email clients, and download managers save downloaded files to this folder by default. You can also customize by changing the default download location in the application settings if needed. Android location and access. On Android devices, the Downloads folder is found in the internal storage and is accessible via the built-in file manager or third-party file management apps. Some platforms, for instance, Samsung phones, have an app labeled My Files, and within My Files, there's a subfolder labeled Downloads. Usage and integration. When files are downloaded from web browsers, email apps, or other sources, they are stored by default in this folder. And they also integrate, including document readers, media players. They can access files from the Downloads folder directly. Mac OS location and access. On Mac OS, the download folder is located in the user home directory. It's easily accessible from the Finder sidebar, the dock, or via the Go menu in Finder. Usage and customization. Usage. Web browsers and email clients and other applications save download files to this folder by default. Customization. Users can configure applications to save downloads to a different location if preferred. Common features across all systems. Centralized storage. The Downloads folder acts as a central repository for all downloaded content, making it easier to locate and manage files. Ease of access. Each operating system provides easy access to the Downloads folder through its file manager interface. Common features across all systems. Organizational tools. Users can organize, sort, manage files within the Downloads folder using the file manager. Security. Operating systems implement security measures to handle potentially harmful downloads, such as built-in antivirus scanning and permission management. In summary, the Downloads folder is a standard feature across Linux, Android, and Mac OS systems, offering a consistent and convenient way to manage downloaded files across different platforms. The Downloads folder in modern computer operating systems provide a centralized, easily accessible location for managing download files, enhancing user convenience and system organization. I'm Bill James for Tech for Senior. Thanks for listening.
I was standing in line at the dollar store this week, and a man in a business suit was in front of me. He stepped up to the counter. The cashier asked how we would like to pay. His product was $3.75. He put his debit card into the machine, used his PIN number and bought this inexpensive item with his debit card. I'm Ron Brown with Tech for Senior, where we teach seniors about technology and help them stay safe when purchasing online products, particularly in upcoming Prime Days. And we want to talk about debit cards and how you need to keep this secure and safe, maybe not use them as much, or let me think about that. Let's see what I have to say. It might surprise you. So let me tell you the difference between a debit card and a credit card. Let's say you had $200 and you wanted to put it in the bank. You would then go to a bank, see the bank manager. The bank manager would take your $200, open an account for you, and deposit your money. But how do you get your money out of the bank? The bank manager would then give you a debit card, and you would then be able to electronically get the money out of your bank. That $200 that you have, you could use to pay for groceries or whatever. But the important thing that you understand is it doesn't require a credit check. There are no contractual obligations. And most important, it's not a credit card. It's easy to get, even if you've had very poor credit ratings. All right, let's talk about a credit card. Credit card is a different situation. If you want a credit card, then you have to sign a contractual obligation with a credit card company. Now, most of you would probably do that with MasterCard, Visa, or American Express. So this involves a lengthy credit card application in which there is a credit check. Not everybody can get a credit card. You have to have a good credit rating. You then have to read a very lengthy contract, and if you read all the paragraphs in that contract, they are all in the favor of the credit card company, except for one paragraph, and that is fraud protection. And that is one of the big advantages of a credit card is fraud protection. You now have your credit card and can use it. So we have debit cards and credit cards. And I do appreciate the choice that you have and that people do not want to have credit cards and they want to live debt-free. So they use debit cards. I appreciate that as well. But you have to remember that a debit card does not offer security. For example, if you lose your wallet on the bus and someone finds it, but the $200 in your wallet is gone, you can't go to your bank and say, hey, someone took $200 out of my wallet. It's the same thing as that man with the business suit. If there was a skimmer on that card reader that he paid $3.75 for and he put his PIN number in, they could drain his bank account very easily. So there is a big risk in using a debit card, particularly with electronic machines, online, etc. So how can you protect yourself with a debit card? And that's the topic I want to talk about today, because you can link your debit card into your Apple Pay or Google Pay, which is a very secure way of doing a transaction. It doesn't give any information about you to the vendor. It is an added level of security that will make your debit card a much safer device to use. Bob and I have teed up today, and we have a couple of videos to show you about using Apple Pay and Google Pay and why it's so important. All right, let's look at how this works. Let's take our traditional credit card. What you do is you put this into the reader and the transaction occurs. And as you put it into the reader, the credit card number and PIN number are recorded in the reader to make that transaction occur. The problem with this is if there's a skimmer, the bad guys have come and actually made a physical altercation to the reader. This can compromise your card and, of course, provide the bad guys with some very important information. Now, this doesn't occur often, but is a potential risk, particularly with readers in restaurants that are often left unattended. So there are some problems with this. So then we have a situation where it has tap and pay, where you can actually take your credit card if it has that little tap and pay signal on there, and you actually can tap the card. Well, how does that work? That uses an older technology called EMV. So your credit card number and your PIN number are not actually transferred. So it is a secure transaction that occurs between them. This is more secure than inserting it in a reader. But of course, in my case, it never works, or it only works some of the time, because I have my credit card in my back pocket. It's sometimes the tap works, sometimes the tap doesn't work. I have to often request a new card from my credit card company because it always works better when I get a new card. So there are a lot of complications with this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So what we're going to talk about today is Google Pay, Samsung Pay, and Apple Pay. And that's where your phone now becomes your credit card. There's a link between your phone and your credit card company. This becomes your credit card. I'm going to show you how to set that up in a minute, but there are a lot of advantages because, of course, we use a different technology than the old EMV that didn't work that well. We use it's called NFC, or near field communication. In other words, there's a radio chip in this phone that actually sends a broadcast to the reader. Now, you probably understand Wi-Fi, you understand Bluetooth. Well, NFC is yet another form of broadcasting that is available on most cell phones. Now, the advantage of NFC is that it only broadcasts 1 or 2 centimeters. You have to be very close for the receiver to pick up the signal. The other thing that happens is when NFC broadcasts from your phone to the reader, it only sends a transaction number. There's no identifier or no information that is kept, or there's no information that's transmitted to the reader other than a very long, complicated number. So that makes this very secure, and also it works. At least I've been using mine for a week now. It works all the time. It's not like that stupid credit card where you tap and pay and it doesn't work. Take 3. Okay, I'm here today and I'm going to be using my Google Pay on my phone. And I've got Andrea here with me because she is a wonderful person and a friend of mine for a long, long time. We used to be in Rotary together, and she's a kind-hearted soul that's going to help me if I have trouble with this. Oh my gosh! So now I'm here at On the Fly. If you stop by at Comox Airport, be sure and come on the fly and buy something, okay? All right, so here we go, and we are going to we're going to charge this. We're going to confirm pay, and I'm not going to leave her a tip, darn it anyway. And I'm going to take my phone now, as you can see my phone here, and I'm going to put it over top, and you'll hear it click, and it is now approved, and we're now going to print. And here comes my receipt, and that is how you use Google Pay on your phone. It's so easy, you've got to try it, all right?